All right, everybody. Hi, this is Bart Baggett. Good morning. I muted everybody because we had some sound issues, but this is the community class, and I'm really thank you for here. Thank you, Paula, for entertaining the people before we arrived and being friendly and a nice, wonderful face of the community. It's awesome. So today's class is really about what you guys want to talk about. I muted you for now, but you guys can absolutely unmute yourself as we get to community. One of the things I want to talk about with Zoom is you've got an option here for tile or speaker view. I love the speaker view. And if you click on that button, which is right here on my screen, could be right there on your screen, you see everybody. And so there's about 20 people here and more joining in at every moment. And this class is definitely not about me. It's about what you guys want. And so if you need to call in or check your audio, you can definitely do that. I want to say hi to Pooja. Pooja, this was her brainchild, and she was really insisting on doing something where we pulled the community together. So for those that don't know Pooja, she's kind of in charge of our corporate office in India, which also supports all our mentors around the world. Pooja, introduce yourself and tell us what you had planned for these great community classes once a month.
Yeah, thank you, Bart. And I welcome everyone on our second community class. And I'm Pooja Saran, working for Handwriting University since past 2 years now. And yes, this was my idea, and Bart really agreed upon, and he was more than happy to entertain this idea of bringing the whole community together. So this idea started with me working on 301 and having a lot of issues and feeling a bit alone. I wanted to speak to people of what is their take of one stroke and understanding how many people are there and what are they using this for, and what is happening in their lives and how they're using it in their lives and how they're doing the analysis. So I thought of bringing everyone worldwide together and discussing on every trait. That's first thing. We'll be taking care of the whole. This class is open for everyone who owns a 301 curriculum in their hand. This year, last year, or 10 years behind, or 20 years, the first student might can also jump in one day. Bringing in all together, and then we'll be discussing the topics. Every class will be having a particular topic. You can always, when you are doing your studies, anyone who's new, who's still studying, they can post in their questions to me, and we'll be discussing those question and answers in the class. Also, from third month onward, we'll be giving an opportunity to everyone to come in and do a guest lecture. But previous to that, there's a lot of things that we'll have to find out what you're going to give a lecture about. We'll be having a slides and all those things that will come across, and you will be getting notification on that. So right now we'll be talking about the community and bringing everyone together and discussing every topic one by one. That's it. And I'm available. You can always call me, and you know where to find me. The numbers will be there in the chat box today, and it's there everywhere on the site. And I'm so happy to see you all.
Thank you. And for you guys that have been gone for a while, we have 3 people helping with our customer support and student support around the world. Pooja handles most of Asia, and then Doc and Brianna Fish handle most of America. So if you need any support, there's pretty much someone around most time of the different time zones. We have people on the phone call from Germany, from Africa, from Singapore, from India, from, of course, the United States and Canada, including parts of Africa. So welcome, everybody. It's really nice to see you here. I'm sorry for our students in Singapore and Australia. It's 11 p.m. there, but I'm up an hour early just so you two can not have to stay up till 1 o'clock. So you're welcome very much, our fans in Australia. So I got a couple announcements, and then we'll move into sort of the content of the questions. So I will tell you that we will go by chat box. So if you have specific questions that you're studying, I know Joanne and Mignon and a number of you guys are studying on your own. And so this is your chance to ask questions about the videos and about the content and really get that support that you might have if you had a one-on-one mentor. So feel free to open up your textbooks, look in that, say, hey, I'm really confused about the slant. Put it in the chat box, and we'll deviate the conversation, because this is, I mean, yeah, it's a community class, but it's also that opportunity to ask a question saying, I'm really stuck on something, question 15. For those of you that graduated 10 years ago, it's a great refresher. I'm constantly analyzing handwriting and constantly learning something new, learning new distinctions. And for those of you that have attended our signature workshops, some of the things we're doing to create new students, and Pooja, I can ask you this question. Pooja has been helping us structure the signature workshops to make it a great experience and attract more students. You've been to probably 15 of these workshops, and you keep coming back and telling me you learn new things. How is it possible that you're learning new things because you're hearing the same content every time I give that workshop?
Oh, it's out of what is their take. It's always like the picture is different from everyone's eyes. So what I am telling you as a trait, if I stack it, that's a different thing, and how they stack it. Like I've recently heard about this trait of self-deceit, and someone said that it is. Someone is scared of pleasant, not ready to accept unpleasant events, something on those lines. And I was surprised by their take of the trait. And it's always different way of how they are taking it and what is happening in their life. Once you explain, okay, this trait is self-consciousness, and they will come up with it. Okay, I think yes, this is what they resonate, and they'll give you one more trait on top of it. It's absolutely learning. Whenever you jump in, it's a new trait you will learn, or a new method of saying it, a new metaphor of saying the trait.
Yeah, and if you guys aren't analyzing handwriting 5 or 6 times a week, it's really hard to get the hundreds of examples that you need to stack traits and really capture a person's essence. The reason that those of us that have been doing this 10 or 15 years seem so amazing and like, oh my God, how to get that, is we're simply assembling things faster. We're stacking traits together a little bit faster. And because of that, and because of the experience of knowing categories of people, we all have the same primary traits. Like you guys are all graduates, or you'll be graduates. You're going to get the primary traits correct. The art of stacking those and of capturing that in one phrase, that's more of an art. That takes a while to capture vocabulary. Phyllis had different phrases than I did. Dr. Walker had different phrases. Again, they're many years older than me, so they had different terminology. So hopefully you'll steal stuff from me. You'll steal stuff from Pooja and Pradeep and Needy and your mentors, and you'll basically make it your own. But you have to rehearse and practice. It's just like playing guitar. You have to get out there and do it. You'll make some mistakes. People will disagree with you, and you'll say, how did I say that? Did I say that wrong? And I still do that. If you see a little bit of handwriting, like just a signature, you may weight the self-esteem incorrectly because you only have limited signatures. So all that stuff builds your confidence over time. But again, if you're not doing it every day or every 5 days, these kind of classes are great for you because you watch and engage. And so for those of you that are in our mentor program, you'll be invited to sort of sit in on the signature classes. You'll also be invited to teach the signature classes. We have 5 people from India coming up to help Pooja and I teach those classes. And we've created a lot of new students from that. In fact, some of you on the call decided to join the course because after an hour and a half on the signature. So I welcome you guys. It's a great lead-in quality. So let me get a couple of announcements out of the way, and then we'll move into some of the content. Pooja has uploaded way too many handwriting samples that we could possibly get to. But this is not on that. We have every month called the Silver Workshop. And so they literally you upload, and I know, recognize Elaine, she's always there. She uploads handwriting samples, and then we just have a conversation. And almost always the first handwriting sample is about 20 minutes conversation. So it's a very in-depth conversation. So if you have handwriting samples that you're struggling with, or you're meeting, or you're meeting people every month, do that. I think it's $7 a month. It's a really inexpensive way to connect with the community. We probably rarely have over 13 to 15 people there. So it's a really wonderful thing. I think if you go to the homepage of Handwriting University, you can get like a $1 offer. But for me, that's probably one of the most valuable tools of the community. So I'm teaching 6 times a month. We have the mentor program, which is once a month on marketing for those that are professional track. We've got the silver class, we got the community class, and then we've got the signature workshops, which are mostly for beginners. And so I'm around a lot with our other trainers in addition to what the people are doing. So if you feel a little bit excluded, there's probably other things you could do to get more involved. So let us know if you want to be more involved. One of the phone calls I got this week was from a guy that might or might not have a big opportunity for us. I don't know. He's an individual promoter, but he did a deal with Dunkin' Donuts. And so for those of you outside of the US, it's one of the largest beverage companies in the world, and they have a donut chain. So they're kind of merged for the donuts, but they're doing speed dating in one of their Miami, Florida franchises. And so they've got 32 franchises, and what they're looking for is some reason to get people hanging out in the restaurant and tasting their food. Makes sense? And so what they're doing is they've got something called the signature coffee, and there's a nice tie-in between a signature coffee and getting your signature analyzed. And so during the dating experience, he reached out to us and said, do you have anybody in Miami, or can you do some quick analysis, maybe some compatibility? And so we're brainstorming. And so what he wants to do over the first couple of the next months is get someone to either show up in Miami and analyze handwriting at the event, or at the end of the event, take those 20 people and scan it and email it off to you guys in another country. And by the next morning, have like a little 2-sentence summary and say, oh, of all the people you met, this guy's most compatible. which I told him is kind of impossible from signatures alone, but he agreed to sort of write whatever we can write. Either way, I thought it would be really fun. So I want to let you know, guys, as always, these business opportunities first go to our mentors. So if you're a mentor, let us know. If you're not a mentor, we still want your help. And if you're in Miami particularly, or you feel like you're going to Miami, I doubt it pays very well, but if Dunkin' Donuts decided to roll it out nationwide or internationally, it could be something big for us, because any exposure to the validity of good handwriting analysts is good for us. So if you have an interest in helping out with that project, even if you want to do it for low or no money, just shoot us off an email at support@Handwriting University and let us know so we can put your name in the hat. And it may not go anywhere, I don't know. We do get phone calls that seem really exciting, and then in the end, they're not that exciting, but at least he's associated with a big major brand. Second announcement is that we are considering, and I don't see her on the phone, one of our newer students, Sophia, is begged me to mentor with me in the international school. And so I'm really considering it. So if we get 10 more students, we will open up a class of international forensic students. So if you feel like that you would love handwriting, but you'd like to make a little bit more money in it, the forensics is probably the most dependable. We're constantly picking up phone calls, and people are sending us checks for $1,000, $2,000. And so most people that graduate from that program are working, they're making between $2,000 and $20,000 a month as far as the forensic, but it's very different than the graphology. If you're interested, go to this UR International School. The domain is not really refreshed yet, so I apologize. It's a little bit clunky, but there is an opt-in, and we'll know that you're interested. It's mostly for people in North America, because you're going to come into our office. We're going to teach you. We're going to do marketing for you. We'll pick a region of the country like Miami, Florida, or New York, or Chicago, and we'll help build a business there. And so those of you in other countries, it's not that I won't let you in the program, but it's not as easy for me to guarantee your success, because I know how to market in the North America. And since it's all in the legal system and we're doing document examining, it makes more sense to do some of the Western countries, which I'm more familiar with. I feel like I can help you more, but that doesn't mean you can't do it, or let me know you're interested. But really, for the Western people, we'll be interested. So that's like a 2-3 year program. It's pretty intense, but it's if you're interested in the forensics, that would be a really good thing to do. But we need to know if you're interested sooner than later, because we'll probably pick our students the next couple of months. And finally, if you guys are not aware of this, we have a monthly training program, and we help our people become authorized mentors, teachers, and then they have the ability to resell the courses at discount. So instead of sending them to our website and you get no commission, you can literally sell them directly. So if you're interested in that authorized training program, we have a couple of spots open now, and we really need some people in North America. Actually, we've got some opportunities such as a signature workshop, which would be really fun. So those are the opportunities that came this month. Like I said, we're still doing the signature. You may have noticed that we've got a lot of ads running for not only the Magic Question Book, which is running nationwide, actually internationally, and those will be funneled into our life design program, which handwriting analysis is part of the assessment. And so that will be coming up this month as well. So let's open up. If I muted you, it's that only because we were having some crosstalk. Feel like any questions. So first of all, use the chat room. So we'll start with any questions. Just click on the chat button, and then we'll have some questions. And then I've got a couple of handwriting samples I think we'll start with that might be kind of fun. And so Pooja, do you have anything to contribute, or did I miss anything as far as the announcements?
Not yet. I'm excited to see the samples. I really chose the best ones available.
Okay, well, we're not going to get to 25 samples. That's impossible.
Yeah. Can we do Marilyn, Monroe, and Elvis Presley, please?
You're so funny. I don't know. Does anybody care about dead people anymore? I don't know.
I love the slant. I never expected it to be so heavy. And I've read in our 501 that when it's a kind of sensuality in her writing. It's thick and pretty intense, deep. And it so suits with her character.
Okay, so we'll start with Monroe. So those of you that are in the beginning course or that are in the certification course, the slant is a pretty important piece. And I find that between the slant and the size of the middle zone, you kind of capture the essence of whether someone's introverted, extroverted, how they're going to be socially, and how emotional they are. And so I'll take Joanne. You're in Germany, Joanne?
Yes.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So tell me about the slant. You got Marilyn Monroe. You're kind of new at this, up to 3 or 4 months. Describe her.
3 or 4 months. This less than 2 weeks.
Perfect. Then you're the perfect person to choose. Put you on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I haven't received any of my material yet, Bart. I haven't even received the little plastic that everybody else has.
Did you? Were you able to log into the website?
I did, and so I can see it, but I can't download it because I don't know how to have a transparent one. Even if I mean, I've read what I could find online, but I don't have the actual thing
Gauge.
to measure.
Okay, so enough excuses. So Pooja will help you track your course to make sure you got there. So the slant's pretty simple. Is this person introverted or extroverted on the screen?
Extroverted.
Yeah. And that's just from the slant to the right. Now, the other thing which you'll learn in time is the middle zone. And so it's interesting because some people that slant up and down, like straight up and down, they can be really extroverted if they have a really big middle zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost a dichotomy, and it's kind of confusing. And it took me honestly years to get that distinction between slant and middle zone. And we'll follow up to make sure that your course gets to you, because it's definitely should have been internationally, though. Those packages sometimes take a while. And emotional gauge is super simple. We could even put that in the mail for you. But when you do get your gauge, I got to tell you that the one thing that people error in is the emotional gauge. They don't really do 100 of them. They do like 7 of them and
figure out exactly how to measure. I know that you start from the baseline. There's the bottom dot and then the upper dot, but I can't sort of figure out there's something in between as well. There's a third dot, and I haven't figured that out yet because I don't.
It's really hard to without the gauge in your hand. So what I was saying is we had seminars every couple of years, and the people that even were on the verge of graduating, like 25% messed up the slant because they were doing an AB and it was an AB or BCCD, only because they didn't slow down and read that chapter step by step, and they didn't put their dot in the right place.
Mm-hmm. So I would really like to, can you tell us a little bit about that now without having an age, or is it just too difficult?
No, it's actually too boring. So yes, I could tell you about it, but the rest of the people would fall asleep because it is the most difficult.
I'll wait until I got my gauge, and then I'll put it out there.
Yeah. So Pooja, would you reach out and make sure she gets followed up on it? Awesome.
I'll connect with her and I will teach. Maybe we can sit for 10-15 minutes and I will take you through how you do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there really is the 101 book has dots, and that is where it is, like a marble on the bottom. And I'm not blowing you off. I'm just telling you that I don't like teaching it.
It looks more like it's a CD, but then when I read about it, I'm finding out it's a DE. So I don't know yet.
Yeah. So the biggest errors, and again, this is all of you that even if you haven't gone back and used your slant gauge, make the line extremely long, like to the edge of the page, not the letter. And you got to get your dots right. If you miss either one of those two, you end up with an incorrect slant. But back to Marilyn, I of course didn't meet her because she was gone before I got here. But she's still famous and worldwide. But she does have a good self-esteem, small handwriting, which is interesting because it's great focus. And that sometimes makes people the illusion that you're introverted, even though you're extroverted. So I think, Joanne, you're correct. She is extroverted, but surprisingly great focus and surprisingly great self-esteem. I mean, really amazing is how, you think, okay, she just kind of got lucky, but she was not only beautiful, but she obviously had talent and discipline and the ability to become a pretty worldwide movie star.
I'm looking at her eyes now because I'm learning a lot about the letter I. And it's because it's going more to it's pretty loopy. This one, there's an I next to I stay, I stay. Yeah, it's the... how many lines down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines down. Does it? I'm still trying to understand the mother and the father and how much that comes into play with the I loop. Is that yes? That's where I'm looking. Can you tell me a little bit what that I means as far as mother, father, self-esteem, ego?
Sure. So the self-esteem is part of what we consider ego or space. Mm-hmm. So the personal pronoun I, and there's entire books written on this, by the way. They're not always correct, but we break it down into like 4 or 5 different features. The weight of the I, especially if they learned English in America or English, English UK, because that means me. So if you're a native English speaker, I means me and the self. If you're a native French speaker, it's je, J-E. Does that make sense? So the I may not have as much weight if they didn't grow up writing the I. So that's a distinction most of you probably never heard because it's not on the recordings. So that's what I've noticed is if they're a native American speaker, all that I-ness or the me means I. And so that's why it's ego. The second piece of confidence is the signature and the size of the signature. All that's to do with self-confidence and basically space. And I say space is you walk into a room And do I own the space? Do I walk down the hall? Do I expect people to move out of my way, or do I move aside? Like this sort of confidence. And it's not self-esteem, it's state-related confidence. Like a sports player has confidence when they're about to shoot the ball versus someone who doesn't. So it's a state, and it's an ego, and it's important, and we need that. People are afraid to make their ego bigger because they don't want to turn into a narcissistic jerk. However, the opposite of that is a wallflower. And so we want somewhere in the middle. So in this situation, she has high upper zones. The I is very healthy. And then, of course, the T bars are high. So you have two, the high T bar, good self-esteem, and you've got good personal pronoun I. Okay. So that's just the size.
Can you really tell about your parents as well in the I, or because I don't hear you speak much about that?
It's because there's me and there's Andre McNichol, and literally we're opposite on deficient. Well, that's not true. So there's books that say the upper loop is the dad, and there's other books that say the bottom loop is the dad.
Exactly.
So what gives? And these are all fairly seasoned experts. And so as I was coming up, I was like, this is really incongruent. The other thing is I found is when I went and said, okay, you got a problem with your dad, about 25% of the time, the person would say, no, it's my mom. She's a bitch. And so I was dead wrong. I mean, I hate being dead wrong. And if I'm dead wrong, there's something wrong with the system. And that's why most of you don't have that dead wrongness, because I've taken out all the stuff in the course that makes you wrong. And Elaine's shaking her head because she understands, because there's so much stuff in the universe that's incorrect in graphology. You really have to focus on the things that are correct. And we have 26 letters in the alphabet, and we have hundreds of languages from that. So you don't need more than 100 primary traits. You don't need 1,000 traits. They can't all be accurate. You just need to assemble them better. So in that aspect, what I decided, go ahead, John.
I'm so sorry. If I want to learn to do a healthy I, because I'm still trying to play with it, I don't have the loop on either side. It's just I have the loop on the top, but I have nothing either side. My mom's deceased and I don't have a relationship with my dad. So I'm wondering, is that just normal for me? Or should I be trying to do it some other way? I don't know how to make my I.
That's a complicated question. So let me explain A, for the rest of the people, sort of the I theory, so you're not confused. B, if you don't have any issue around your parents, you don't have to do anything with your I. So there's no ideal way to do it. There was a lady in Dallas that insisted everybody printed their I, like / print. That was her rule. Everybody needs to get away from the dominance of their parents, because all parents are bad and they need to be independent. I think that's a really bad rule to make everyone fall into that category, because some people have great relationships with their parents. Some people live with their parents till they're 80. Like, why would you say that for everybody? Likewise, if both your parents aren't around, Joanne, you could print your I and you're not losing anything because you don't have a strong relationship with them. Okay. It doesn't affect you much. But the bigger question is, why would you make that change if there was an impending issue? And that really falls under the graphotherapy banner. So the answer is, for you, there's no ideal way, unless that core part of your issue is somehow causing issues, is causing a problem. Maybe if you have babies, you're like, okay, I want to duplicate this connection with babies, but I have no understanding whether that I relates to children. So let me finish the concept. Is most books say that the first loop is the mother and the second loop's the father. And that is kind of the direction I took. I said, okay, if you can watch them write the I, if you can actually watch them and observe them write it, the first loop that comes out of their hand is the mother. So the first person you know as a baby is your mom, because you're in her room for 9 months, okay? And then you get to know your dad. So I think that those 25% of people that said you're dead wrong, I simply didn't know whether they're writing it with the top loop first or the bottom loop first. That is my way to reconcile this sort of schism within the community of first or second loop. So you guys give that a shot and let me know if that's what you guys have found out. I have no strong attachment to whether I'm right or wrong on this, but I do not agree it's always mother or always father. I just found that not to be true. And I think it must have something to do with the first or second loop. Feel free to unmute yourself and comment on this. This is a great thing for you to do. Thank you, Paula. You're up. Please share your wisdom, because you have both the Italian background as well as what we're doing. Go ahead, Paula.
Yes, thank you. I mean, you said that you are from Germany, right? And you learn how to write. I cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm a Brit living in Germany. I'm English living here.
Okay.
I'm not German.
You're English. I'm wondering, did you learn the I the same as in Europe, that the top is kind of like, for you, like this top, flat top, and then straight down? Let me see if I can write it down.
I know what you're saying. I've never,
Never do that.
Not with the dagger thing going down. With the something else.
Because
More.
what happened is you mentioned that you don't have the lower part, and that makes sense. If you learn this type of eye, there is no bottom part at all.
It's either that or it's even a smaller upper one.
Can you show it again, please? Because
I don't know. Can you see?
But I was wondering, what is the one that you learn? I mean, what is the style, how it looks like, the one that you learn at school?
No, I've been out of school too long to know what I learned then. Okay. I can't remember.
Because if you have this type of eye, which is the one that is taught in many places in Europe,
I see it.
Of course, there is absolutely no lower zone.
It's like a J. That would confuse me.
Yes, in Italy and several other parts, like in Spain, they have this type of eye, and that's why when I analyze foreigner handwriting, I never use the pronoun I as a reference.
Well, I heard that Donald Trump has the capital I, and that sort of turned me off. That one.
You've got a lot of traits.
I want to add something here. Thank you so much, Joanne, for bringing the eye topic. But right now, today's topic is the slants and the size. And we will be jumping into eye and different topics very soon. And I would really love it if you can bring in your questions as you are learning. You'll be having a lot of questions which will help other students too. So bring in the questions and make a note. Right now we are discussing as one by one because there are a lot of students who don't know anything about eye. So it will confuse them when they'll get into it. So we'll start with the slant and the size of the letter and the zones. That's what we are discussing right now. So let's just stick to the topic. And please keep your questions ready. Don't just forget about this eye question because I really think it's very interesting for everyone to know.
Great. So Elaine has a question about Marilyn Monroe's writing and vanity. So it's interesting. Vanity is a trait that I've begun to understand a little bit more with not only with people around me, but it's one of the traits of successful people, but it's also one of the traits of really annoying people. So there's this mix of everybody, not everybody, a lot of people are sensitive to whether people like me, people respect me, and then the violation of that respect can absolutely ruin a relationship. And so the taller the T and D stems, the more of that sense of concern about reputation. At the same time, it's normally a good thing because they want you to respect them. They're also really motivated by status, or as Joan would say, status, the English way, status. And that's a huge motivation. Like if you think about all the multi-level companies, even newspapers, even the Academy Awards, that trophy, that public recognition of your accomplishments will motivate people for years. So whether it's an Academy Award or the Pulitzer Prize or something, that status is highly motivating, and people that have a lot of pride and self-respect are highly motivated by that. So we see that in Marilyn Monroe's, which is also recognition. And so if you understand how somebody's motivated, you're more likely to be able to coach them better, to manage them better, even have a better relationship, because you understand that element of respect, RESPCT, is really, really important. So very good. And thank you for pulling us back. I do want to sort of stick to a similar topic, but as we move through, it's very hard not to navigate to other traits, because we're, especially those of us that have been doing this a long time, you're mixing all this stuff together. But we'll be mindful there are people that have been here 2 weeks who want to also kind of bring it down. And that's one thing the silver class does, is we break it down, is especially when I'm coaching you, is like, where did you see that? Where did you see that? How did that primary trait? Because I can tell you that if you ask me where I see something or why did I say it, I can always tell you exactly the letter plus this thing plus that thing. And I can tell you, I've met dozens of teachers that'll be like, well, it's a feeling about it. And you'll never get that answer from me because I have no feelings. I had my empathy gland removed years ago. I have no use for them whatsoever. Therefore, I don't have any feelings, and it's not an intuitive science. Unfortunately, you guys are all muted because I do like to hear the laughter. That makes me really happy when I get the validation of laughter and jokes like that. So I'm sorry I didn't get the benefit of hearing the laughter on my punchline there. Okay, slant. Elaine, you are kind of a veteran here because you've been around the silver course. This is Kennedy, which I heard you dated him when you were younger. Is that true, Elaine?
Oh, I'm sure.
No, I'm not old.
I tease. You know what? I call Doc Grayson 180. You can get a little bit of. I'm not picking on him anymore because he's in the hospital. But you should love the fact that I'm picking on you.
I was a kid at the time. Okay. Yeah. So
Slant.
we were talking about
what slant? Eyeball the slant. Is it A, B, F, A, D, E, E plus?
I would think it would be E plus.
E plus. Joanne, you have a vote.
DE. I would have said Marilyn was CD and this is DE, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I think D is my first guess, Joanne. So you and I are parallel on that. Could even be E plus. Pooja, did you measure this?
Yeah, E plus DE, yeah.
So E plus DE, awesome. And now again, we're eyeballing this, which is not really a good idea if you're a beginner. However, it's like, man, it's definitely slanted. Remember, we can only measure upstrokes. Therefore, if somebody prints, it's illusion because you're like, oh, he's going backwards because those are the downstrokes going backwards. So that's one of the things that as you use the gauge and you follow the procedure, you realize, oh, what I think is this way, that's all the downstrokes confusing me. I just want to measure the upstrokes. So you're probably right, DE plus. I mean, highly passionate guy for sure. I was very intrigued by the big loop in the D. I thought that was a really unusual trait for such an interesting leader. He probably had a lot of pain, especially with criticism, but then again, he used it and became president, you know, and got himself killed. So a lot of negatives with, you know, if he, I don't know, I would have to argue he wasn't paranoid that they were after him because they were. So you really can't say that it was paranoid. Pooja, that's a good sample. Is there anything else anybody wants to say about it?
I would like to add, I couldn't see anything in the lower zone. In fact, very little bit of it's there in the lower zone. The main handwriting is only in the upper zone. So as we are discussing zones also, what do you have to say on that upper zone? There are a lot of new people here will be getting confused. What is upper zone all about? Is it philosophy? Is it religious? How do you explain it? Because it still is a little struggle for people to understand. How do you express the philosophies and how do you say that?
Sure. So that kind of falls under the generalization or the zones of theory. You know, like you have music theory in you know, piano class. It's part of the theory. So once you're saying the theory, everything blends together better. But you can learn individual notes on a piano and you can probably play a song. But if you want to really jump from song to song, you need to understand the theory. So that's part of the theory, meaning upper zone philosophy. Middle zone today, lower zone is physical drives, and then also left and right. So it also parallels with some of NLP timeline therapy. Like there's lots of mental models that parallel to future, past, etc. And so as you think about that, it's really useful as you get better when you find traits you've never seen before, especially in India. One of the things I noticed about that audience is if there is an exception, they will find it. They're like, I have a doubt. Like, what if I do this? But I've seen this one trait in my signature and I have to know what it means. And you're the expert, so you have to know what it means. If it's not in that 99 or 150 primary traits, I'm probably going to have an educated guess. And I'm going to guess based on theory, meaning that I've never seen it before, but based on the direction, the size, the slant, etc. And so a lot of people get frustrated because, you know, there's this crazy stroke they see in their signature and someone should know a meaning. But we only know meanings if we've seen it hundreds of times and categorized it and it kind of came into the lexicon of what that is. If you look at Kennedy's writing, there's not a lot of letters with lower zones, so there's not a lot of Ys. I've seen his writing where he's got Gs and Ys and they're very, very fluid like figure eights. So I don't know that the absence of Ys is as much relevant because we don't have a lot of handwriting. However, the few downstrokes we do see have a lot of determination, especially in the Ds and these strokes like right here.
But we have a big one, that big Y in Kennedy in the signature.
Right, and it's really odd because it's down with a cross, which is very odd. There's no particular meaning about that, but any of these long downstrokes is determination and independence. So, and then we've got the argumentativeness and the P, and like there's lots of good stuff here. And if you start stacking the traits together, you're like, oh, look at this fast thinker, and then you've got this, you know, resentment, and you got the big loop in the D. There's a lot of stuff we could spend hours on doing it, which is great. But the upper zone is a fascination with ideas, religion, philosophy, politics. It's cerebral. If you look at Deepak Chopra, if you look at, I think the Dalai Lama, but you have to correct me on that, that there are a lot of signatures of people that are basically spiritually focused, and their signatures have very little middle zone, and they're all upper zone. If you take the opposite of that, and if you guys have seen my early work, the big fluffy bimbo handwriting, I know that's terribly insulting, so I never say that word anymore. In fact, I don't know who said that. I don't do that anymore. That would be very politically inappropriate to say that. But that is someone living in the moment. So they are not thinking about death. They're not thinking about politics. They're thinking about what party is to go clubbing tonight. And so you get that 15 to 25-year-old, bubbly writing, and that is all they're thinking about. Now, some people never outgrow that, and I've seen that, but most people do. And so to think about the opposite is like this big in the moment, live in the moment versus, Deepak Chopra's and people that are, constantly meditating. They have a very different focus. One's in the present, one's in the future. Does that make sense? And so that's how you reconcile that. That's sort of theory. But when you think about it, the theory helps you understand the primary traits. So the primary traits of sex are in the lower zone, the perversions or bisexuality or trust, all those in the lower zones. If you take the sort of aggressive stroke, which is basically, you see this in the P, that is argumentative. That's a primary stroke. But it's because it's aggressive in the lower zone. That's why it's argumentative. Aggressiveness in the Y is physically aggressive. Aggressiveness in the middle zone is what we see argumentative. Aggressiveness in the upper zone is basically an anger at religion. So it's a similar stroke. It's just moved around. And those of you in the advanced course, you're seeing that these strokes, like these angles and knives and roundedness, nurturing quality, they're just splattered at different parts of the writing, different zones, and they give it a slightly different connotation or different word for it. But really, it's about shapes and figures. And so I know that's a little bit gestalt, but we have to bring in the holistic with the primary traits as you move forward, because you'll be better at it. And that's the thing. It's better to learn the primary strokes and then start kind of backing into the theory, because if you start with theory too much, it seems too general. And so for those of you the beginners, stick with the primary strokes and the grapho deck and those primary cards. You'll boost your confidence because you'll be correct. And as you begin to see patterns, especially holistic patterns, you begin to be a better analyst all around. Cool. You guys, you can unmute yourself. I didn't mute everybody out because I want to talk by myself. I just that there. One more question. I don't think this is actually Tom Cruise's handwriting. I got to tell you, uploaded a sample, and I got to be mindful. It says Tom Cruise, but I don't think this is Tom Cruise. I think this is a guy named Steve. But it's an interesting sample because of the slant. And so if you're teaching classes, just be mindful you may be not getting the celebrity's writing intentionally. So you can't really trust the internet. But that slant is really, really an E+ slant. And so question, is this person dependable or reliable? Which, by the way, is a trait, is literally a question that is out of the final exam. I ask you, and Divya, you may remember me asking you this, is this person dependable or not? So Divya, tell me if you think this person is reliable, stable, and why, and it may remind you of that horrible experience called your certification exam, and I hope you're not traumatized by that still.
In terms of his reliability, I think I'm completely clueless what I said in the exam, but somewhere I see that people relying on him is not an issue, but I think he would have problem relying on people because he has fear of intimacy as well as socially selective. So he would have trust issues with others. Yeah.
So let me break that down for those. You said he's not reliable, but why do you say that? That's not a primary trait.
No. That's what I said, that in terms of he relying on others is definitely clear from his writing that he is socially selective, plus he has trust issues because of his squeezed G's, the lower zone descenders. But in terms of how reliable he is,
So let me give you some coaching here. So what I'm looking for, especially since you're going to be a teacher, Divya, is I want you to take your statement and pull it into a primary trait, because you got a lot of people on the phone that are just starting. And so that they're like, oh, you get this. So you said basically the socially selective and the lack of trust, which is the lower zone. So you take the statement and say, hey, I'm believing the trust is an issue on reliability. Now, I don't know that that's where I would have gone with that. But as far as when you become a teacher, break it down and say, here's the primary stroke. So the trust is an issue. I totally agree with that. The word reliability doesn't have a perfect correlation. And here's where you guys will really get hung up, is when somebody, especially a business client or a corporate client, is like, oh, I want someone trustworthy. I want someone reliable. If you can't break that into primary strokes or primary traits, they're asking for something unrealistic. And so, if I said, Pooja, I want a girl that doesn't cheat on me. Can you look through these 6 handwritings and tell me a girl who doesn't cheat? That's not a primary stroke. No one's ever said that we can predict with 100% reliability if someone is in a context, because cheating is a very weird concept. Does that make sense? Like there's all kinds of different mores and social norms and rules about that. So take the word reliability, it's kind of a trick question. It's like, what does reliability mean? You break it down. So the word stable, and my connotation is really predictable, and they're repetitious, they're disciplined, they're going to have the same result every time. Well, if you think about that kind of person, would be more liable, punctual, on time. So now we're saying, okay, samples, give me a case study. Okay, punctual. Will the person be on time? Is the person organized? Does the person keep a clean desk? Now we're solidifying this idea called reliable into a very specific action or case study. Now, I can tell you anyone who writes this bouncy and E+ is probably not anal retentive, because anal retentive has a very straight baseline. Those people need to control their environment or they feel anxiety. And I'll say that again, because I don't think that's on the videos as much as my new understanding of that. People that have pretty rhythmic, perfect writing, they need to control their handwriting, they need to control their environment. And when things are not in control, when the sock is in the floor, when the refrigerator's not lined up, they have anxiety. So people don't like anxiety. So what's the solution for anxiety if you need to have everything organized? Pooja?
Perfectionism. If you're losing control, right? That's what you're talking about.
So you over control your environment. You over control your spouse. You over control your kids. You over control your laundry. And if the closet's not perfect, you can't go to sleep.
Absolutely.
If everything's, if my grandmother used to have we could not walk on a freshly vacuumed floor. Well, why the hell vacuum it if you can't walk on it? Like it's not a museum we're living in, you know? But that kind of perfectionism was endemic of her character, and she was wildly successful, but incredibly hard to get along with. Does it make sense? And so this person's kind of the opposite of that. They're bouncy, they're fluid, they're impulsive. They're not going to get all freaked out about walking on the floor after being vacuumed. And so those are big information based on slant and size.
Okay. I was just looking at his writing again. If we look at his O's in terms of his communication, which are open, it shows that he's talkative, and some of his traits, like for example, in the third line is off, which shows honesty, although in other places it's like mild secretiveness as well. So in terms of keeping the secrets, would we rely on him? I would doubt, because O's are open. So how far would he be able to keep the secrets?
So great question. So let's break this down. So the question is, can he keep secrets and is reliable with his words? So let's talk about honesty, right? So you're chunking reliability, not about time or accuracy, but about honesty. The first place to go is the O's, and he has kind of a mixed bag. He's got secretive, he's got talkative, and he's got some which are kind of just confusing. So if you look at these right here, these are these really big stingers. They're not really part of the conversation of secretive or not, but they're convoluting the O's. And because the stinger is such a manipulative issue, meaning that they're compelled to cause problems and disrupt things. And so I think with really big stingers, it's going to throw off our really simple assessment of secretive, talkative, et cetera. So for me, because of the stingers, because of the inconsistency of the open loop or not, I would think he probably cannot be trusted with somebody's of secrets, because he's too impulsive, because he's a little too talkative, and because he likes to play games. I think words would be one of those ways. Now you're totally open to disagree with me on that. I have no problem with that.
I'm sorry, but he also has a temper, and he's very stubborn. I see that in his T's.
Nicely done. Exactly. Yeah.
And Bart, I have to add one more thing about it, that in terms of reliability, looking at his slants, which is E+, so they are very moody, they are very impulsive when it comes to emotional. So some days they will be very, in a happy-go-lucky mood, and sometimes they will be very, going into their shell. So they are very unpredictable. Isn't it that way we can infer about an E+ person?
Yeah, there really are. However, when they're on, they're magnificent. But when they're charming, when they're speaking, when they're acting, they're radiant. So don't take away that but when they're on, they're radiant, they're amazing, probably 100 times more charming than any AB writer could ever be. So just, and this is a problem. If you are an E+ writer, you love E+ writers. A lot of people in India are AB, BC writers, and they think all E+ writers are crazy, and we don't have any use for them whatsoever. But remember, you surround yourself with people like yourself, and we're biased to like people who are like us. So if you're surrounding yourself with AB and BC writers that are very nurturing and rounded, you come across someone like Donald Trump's handwriting and you absolutely hate it. And there may be a lot of reasons to hate that individual, but from the handwriting, don't let your prejudices prejudge, because there's a lot of brilliant things with people that are not you. And I had the same thing with the rounded handwriting because I'm kind of pointy, and I've learned to really appreciate the rounded, nurturing handwriting, even though that may not be what I am personally. Good point, Joanne. You did very well. There we go. Stop the share.
What I was looking for in terms of their moodiness, impulsive, in terms of their very impulsiveness, they are very succumb to their emotions. So isn't it that should be, not like we cannot really rely on that person, like he can easily swing away by his emotions. So when we really in hour of need them, sometimes and they are not in a mood to do that. So how do we,
Well, I disagree. I think you can rely on people that are E+. In fact, because of their level of passion, if they're committed to you, like in a relationship or business, they may be even more committed. So I think we're confusing passion with flakiness. And so those are two different words. So I would say that that's probably not an accurate statement, they're not reliable, but you're right. They'll be high and they'll be sad, but that doesn't mean that they're going to change their focus. So if they're going to get a Super Bowl ring or they're going to finish like boxers and athletes, they're a lot E+ writers. That level of passion drives them. Yeah, they're going to be depressed in a few days, but that doesn't mean they're going to change their focus off of you or what you want to do. So just remember, passion is gas or explosive, and yes, it'll push them forward. So again, if you're not an E+ writer, be mindful that to not be biased. And the way to do that is to get to know some people that have those expressive E+ slants personally. If you do know them, you'll realize some are wonderful. Now again, E+ writing with bouncy bass lines, I mean, you can go talk to a homeless person and they're going to have multiple slants, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the stable people, the normal people that do that. Mignon, you had a question.
Yes.
Pronounce your name. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's right. That was in Marilyn's writing, just with the weird Y that she had. I think it was Marilyn's. No, might have been the one after that. With the weird lower zone, but you sort of disregarded it, saying that we didn't really mean too much.
Yeah, it's just, I think it was Kennedy's writing, is we only had one slant. Yeah. It's not that it didn't mean too much. We just didn't have a lot to work with.
What did you mean when they sort of go back towards the past with another loop and then forward in sort of like a triangle, backwards triangle? Or maybe
is it something like that squeezed clannishness? Is it like a clannishness but very squeezed, like very small size looped there? It could have been a like a loop, tight loop over there. Is it?
Well, clannishness is a very tiny loop. It's almost very tiny. And Milton Bunker, I think we talked about this last time, is he talked about clannishness as being a clue that someone had homosexual tendencies. But remember, that book was written in the 1950s and he was homosexual. So he had a filter of like time, which was, I can't trust people, everyone would murder me if they knew I was gay, and then 1950. So that trait definitely doesn't mean gay in 2019. However, it still means a lack of trust. And so the smaller the Y, the less emotional trust. Normally what we see is people with down retraced Ys are in the middle of an emotional divorce, emotional separation, some sort of lack of trust because they got emotionally burned. One of my favorite things to do recently is look at somebody's writing and predict how they got there. So I met this woman at a seminar recently. She had massive domineering qualities and massive pride and dignity, but she was bitchy would be the word, right? And she was so sweet. Like there's nothing about her that wasn't just the sweetest, most capitulating person, but her writing was like this woman's. And so I started talking about, I said, there's no way you would be so domineering and so strong and such a strong female without a really rough history, especially because she was born in Saudi Arabia, moved to the US at 17, surrounded by Muslim men. Clearly she had a lot of domineering men around her. And I was like, what is the path that got you here? And she was just like, wow, someone gets me. Like I went through so much roughness. Now I'm a little rough around the edges. I'm kind of bossy, but there's a reason for it. So that speculation of how you got there is like looking at a broken taillight on a car and speculating, hey, you just had an accident. What happened? Hey, there's damage here. Let me speculate what happened. And that creates a lot of rapport. Now you're not being a psychic. You're not predicting the past or the future, but you're extrapolating evidence and saying, let me figure out how that got there. Joanne, you had your hand up.
Yes, my J, during my 12-year marriage, my J had no bottom loop. As soon as I got divorced and I was back to myself again, my loop came back. That's really, really, it's true. It was like that. And I used to look at my J and go, where is your loop? Where is your loop? And now as soon as I get divorced and I'm healthy and happy and normal again, my loop comes back. It's really interesting. I mean, yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I obviously that marriage was not a good fit for you because you were being independent and withdrawing.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I have a solution for that. Don't get married. And you're losing a very simple solution. Doc took the same path I did. He never got married. I don't know the rest of you. Good luck with that, right?
We like the bigger loop.
Your advice comes a bit too late, but
so that what did it mean exactly, Bart? That I just had a line going down. I had nothing going on down there. Is that
no? There's a lot going on. It's independence and it's not needing other people. So it's not about sex. It's about independence, strength. It's about the zone. If it's long, it means the drive exists.
Yeah.
It means the trust doesn't exist. So the drive exists. So for example, especially in men, and it's very common in women as well these days, but they may have a sex drive, but they don't want to have any emotion attached to it. So it's friends with benefits. It's a physical drive. I want to work out. I want to exercise. But you know what? I don't want to get my heart involved. That could be painful. So in that context, you still had the physical drives. You wanted to exercise. You wanted to take care of yourself. Business-wise, all that drive was there because the why was long. If you get a cold or flu, your why will shrivel up.
It wasn't my why. It was my J. My J had no loop.
Right, and that's part of your capital name, so that's a little bit more of the signature, sort of like what does that represent? But if you take it into the rest of the writing, it's the lower.
Actually, it's true. Even the Y's, you're right.
Yeah. So independence, I like independent people. I wouldn't change that in therapy wise or graphotherapy. It depends on what their goals are. If they want to be in a relationship, normally being trusting is part of that fabric, which makes that really useful, opposed to two independent people kind of crossing in the night. Okay. Minion, did you get your question answered? I felt like we started with you, but we bounced around a little bit.
Not really. It's sort of the inverted triangle at the bottom where it does a loop and goes back on itself, almost a bit like a claw, and then back again.
I think she was talking about the Kennedy's Y in his signature.
Yes.
The long stem, the downward, the stroke of Y, but just have a small goes back and come forward.
Yeah, so it's not a great example of what you're talking about, but there is a concept called a teenage Y, which Dr. Walker talks about. In other books, sometimes the lower zones are referred to as the felon's claw. In most recent studies, we talk about revenge. So there's a number of things that go into the past and then come back in the future. And angles are curiosity. So the more angles instead of loops, they're more curious, they're more critical, they're more playful, they're more investigative. So when you look at some of the writings, like, oh, that's a sexual pervert. I don't even know what that means, by the way, as far as like that term is kind of judgmental, but it means they're excessively curious about things related to sexuality. So for example, when I first moved to LA, I lived in a town near West Hollywood, which is where predominantly gay men and women live. And there was a predominant amount of people that were outwardly gay, and they had really big triangles in their Y. And I had never seen that before. And it was both men and women. And that to me I started seeing a pattern between people that were bisexual or very curious sexually, and they had really big triangles in their Y. Now, I had not ever been in a community where that was common. So that doesn't mean, okay, they're bisexual, but you can bet they're more curious than the person with very little Ys. Does that make sense? They're more curious. They're more open-minded. They're curious to know what is there to explore. I'm curious to explore. Okay. So that's what that means. So that is definitely a different topic altogether, but it gets complicated and a little bit speculative. And so, let's see, Capel Maxwell, you were trying to control the screen, but you have a question. What is your question? So here's the thing, Mr. Maxwell, we can't hear you because your internet is really slow. And so I'm really glad that I didn't let you control the screen because I may not get it back. So yeah, the internet, I can't hear, but can you type your question?
Chat, please put it on the type.
Yeah, please type your question because your internet's very bad and none of us can hear you, which is unfortunate. Good questions. I like the way this conversation is moving around left to right. It entertains me. Is this someone else that's dead, Pooja? Did you pull this from the home study course? Wow. Or the yeah, this is number 25. So this must be one of the
these are handouts. These are the handouts that we are given, and a lot of people don't even see that. And that's the first thing I tell my students to go, and that's a treasure box because that really helped me. This is the classic handouts, classic audio handouts in the last part of your Impress publication curriculum, and you'll be amazed how much you can learn from those handouts.
Yeah, let's show that real quick. For those of you, most of you have got the course last couple of years, so you've got all this new stuff. But if you didn't, there is an entirely online course with really amazing content in it. And a lot of people, especially those of you that are not native English speakers, ignore this 15 hours of interviews, like 15 hours of we recorded it in 1996. So you're like, oh, it's outdated. This science doesn't get outdated. Like this is psychology. So the references to cell phones and beepers may not be as entertaining as you think it could be, but the language and the analysis and the just over and over listening to me or Kurt or somebody analyze writing is incredibly useful. And so if you haven't dug through there, I would encourage you to go there into that section. I'll show it.
In fact, one of our recent graduates just passed and she was so good at trait stacking. And she gave the whole credit to these handouts and the audios that no one actually listens to these days. They feel that's the same thing, but actually it's not same. It's very, very different.
Yeah, so I remember her because she got like an A+, and I was like, listen, you don't have a mentor. How did you get so good? And she's like, I listened to the classic audios every day for the last 6 months. Like she literally had the jokes down. She would going to work, exercising, because it's all on MP3. And so if you go here, you've got literally audio files. So they used to ship like this. I don't think we ship them anymore. Maybe we do. I don't know.
No, we don't do that. We don't do these audios. We do different things.
Yeah, so they're all downloadable. But this is really golden stuff. And the problem is because my father has an accent from Texas, if you guys are from India, it may be hard to understand. But please don't do yourself the disservice of not listening to those. And look at these. We got hundreds of handouts, samples from like radio interviews and just really cool stuff that just gives you that ability to analyze handwriting quickly. And every one of these, you've got somebody analyzing on the audios. So that's a great resource that a lot of people just skip by because like, oh, I got videos now. But I got to tell you, you can't listen to videos when you're driving a car. And I listened to Dr. Walker's cassette tapes many hours. I mean, because, and it shows my age, but the repetition of seeing and hearing that.
In fact, you'll be surprised because there are few of the traits that we don't see in daily life, like jealousy. You will find it in these handouts, and clannishness. You will find it in these handouts.
Yeah, and yielding. There's a number of traits which were talked about more back then. It's not that they're not true anymore, but they're just, I don't see them as much. So we kind of highlight the things that are most common in today's world. But if you're taking a test, you still need to know what yielding is and comprehensive thinker and those traits like that. Manual dexterity, traits that may not be on the top of your list, but you still want to do that. So thanks for bringing that up. That's a really cool thing. And again, if you don't have access to that, just contact one of our customer support people and get yourself upgraded. Most everybody here I'm looking at is recently, but we may see someone on the replay that watches this like, oh, I used to have the course in 96. Cool. Upgrade. Like John Metzik, he probably has, probably not cassette tapes, John, probably DVDs is my guess, but I remember him for the last 10 years or so. So, okay, I'm looking at questions. I don't see any more. So we'll wait. We're at the top of the hour. We can go longer. We don't have to limit this to an hour. This is your time. So if you want to stay another half hour, I'm all for it. This is especially your coaching time where you guys get some individual coaching on sort of the elements that you're writing. Obviously, it's not the silver class. We can't upload something, but specifically any kind of questions is a good question. And also, Maxwell, if you can type your question, that would be great since we're not able to hear you. This is an interesting. This is Oprah.
Divya has a question on the chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, most of the signature workshops are during the working day. So like today there was one, but it was Singapore time around 1 o'clock. So most of my students, they want to join, but they're not able to do so because they're at work. So they had a concern if we can do it on a weekend or a weekday.
Yeah, so two things. She's talking about the signature workshops. So the purpose of the signature workshops is to get people that aren't in our community get excited about the community. So they're basically basic workshops. If you're talking about your mentoring, your people that are in the certification course, Divya?
No, they are in 101.
Okay, so they're in 101. So we have them on Indian time and American time, and they're absolutely welcome to do that. So if you there's two different links, one for the Indian time zones and one for that. So we'll just shoot Pooja a link and we'll give you those links. There's also one for you guys that are already certified or in the certification course. There's just no sales pitch. It's a little bit more advanced. We don't pitch anything. We don't sell anything. And that's once a month. And we created that just to give you the opportunity to learn the signatures. We'll also be taking some of the signature slides and putting them in the 301 area in the next month and a half. So that content, the things that because we've analyzed, over 100 people now just from signatures, and it's a little bit of a different process than having the whole handwriting. It's actually a handicap. It's like fighting with one hand behind your back. You can still accomplish it, but it's a lot harder. And so we've done that. And so we'll put that up in the members area in the 301 so you have access to that. And then also those are their mentors like Divya. If you're interested in teaching that course, then we have a process, and I didn't see your name on the list. I'm not sure if you were there, but we're going to be training our mentors to take over me and Pooja's job and teach those courses in all the time zones. And we'll run the advertising so you guys can get new clients. But it's actually not as easy as just saying show up and teach. There's definitely a process to it of not only how to handle the weird signatures, what to make over, meaning that people are asking for change, and trying to tell them, look, this one change in your signatures, not really what you want. You want a full graphotherapy session. You need to have the whole picture. Changing your signature is not going to give you the result you want. So it's sort of a process of moving them from really curious to, hey, I really want to have a self-assessment, and now I want to create a plan to change. So it's complicated, but it's a great opener. I'm telling you, people think that the signature is all that matters, but once they begin to learn, their eyes light up like, oh, I want to learn this. So the answer is, Divya, if you'll just be in touch with us, we'll make sure your students get access to the correct classes, whether they're graduates or in the 101. Right. And also, if you want to teach, please reach out. And for the rest of you, if you're not in our mentor program, that's where we do all the teaching. We hold your hand. We let you buy stuff at wholesale and sell at retail. It's the next step if you want to make a little part-time money for this, or you want to be one of our teachers. So feel free to do that. And you can't join until you graduate. So those of you that are still working on it, you have to wait till you graduate. Hi, Needy. I haven't said hi to you. How's Singapore? Is it midnight there?
Yeah, it's a midnight over here. 12 o'clock. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And you've got a lot of students as well. And are they digging into the online course, and are they hating my American accent too?
No. They are liking it and they are enjoying it. So I think the two of my students are here, Richa and Vasumati. So yeah, I think so. Yeah, they're having a good time, and yeah, they keep listening, and I'll keep reminding them to just listen. And so just now, as we were mentioning, so yes, the audios are also very good. So I do encourage them to just go further and go step by step with all the chapters, make some notes, so then they will get the concept right.
Yeah, for those of you that don't have a mentor, you're kind of at a disadvantage because, Needy's taking them, meeting them every week, every other week, basically accountability partner. They're saying, did you do the class? Did you watch it? Etc. And because of that, they're making progress. So it's very easy to get kind of off your track. And since these calls are sort of every month, we're not going to call you up and say, Joanne, did you finish chapter 3? Like you're very disciplined. You can do that on your own. So it's a little bit of an advantage to have a coach and do that. And then also for those of you that are doing classes like Needy, if you're doing a group class, we'll find a way to open that up to other students if you don't mind other people jumping in, because people like Joanne might want to jump in on a call, and we'll sort of find a way to let your mentors share some of your knowledge, because I definitely don't want to be the only teacher. These kind of classes I love because you guys are my favorite students, our graduates. But my future is not doing this. My future is Paula and Pooja and Needy teaching these classes with you, and you guys can be the celebrity. And Paula was nice enough to open up with her friendly ness and open up and make everyone feel welcome when they call there. I felt like someone was raising their hand or looking, and I'm not sure. Was that Joanne? Were you nodding your head or talking? Okay.
Yeah, of course they can, like we are going like a chapter wise, so definitely they can have more, so like these type of samples and all. And I think so, yeah, silver membership is very good. So I think so everyone should have that silver membership. So they will be getting the used to of doing the analysis and get the thing that how to do the analysis. So I think so everyone should
Yeah, I
be
mean, it's really hard to not have someone sit over your shoulder and point and say, yes, yes, oh, let's think of it this way. You know what I mean? It's not about being criticism, but just kind of supporting you as you're doing the analysis. So yeah, the silver is probably the easiest group call to get on. It's a crappy time zone for some parts of the world because it's 6 at night. So for Joanne, it'd be miserable because it's 3 in the morning. But maybe some of you want to teach other ones. Okay, one of the samples. This looks like Oprah.
Kuya, has a question, right? You still have a question, Kuya. Mr. Kuya. I think he still have a question.
He'll have to chat. He'll have to type it in.
Yeah,
we're not able to.
He keeps asking me to take over the screen, but I can't do that because if I give him the screen, I can't get it back. And since his internet's so
at the
bad,
bottom, there is a bar, and you can click for chat and type your question in the chat box.
Great. So Maxwell, just type your question right there in the chat box, and we'll answer your question.
We'll get in touch with him, and we will sort out his queries. Don't worry.
Yeah, he has to finish the test. I can tell you now that he doesn't speak perfect English, and he needs some people to translate into the local language because his biggest issue is the vocabulary words. And if you're not absolutely fluent in English, you need someone to help you translate these complicated vocabulary words. You don't know these words. We're basically we're an advanced psychology program. And if you don't look up these words and really have full comprehension of the vocabulary words, you can't possibly pass the test because it's all about translating an idea into a vocabulary word and a vocabulary word into a behavior. And so that's where him not having a mentor is a real disadvantage compared to those of you that have mentors. I don't know, is this really Oprah's writing? What a bright woman.
Yeah.
Yes, it is her writing.
I feel like this D should be talked about. I'm worried, but she's a billionaire and I want her to be my friend, so I can't say anything about her. Any comments? Do you want to talk about it? No, you don't care? You don't want to talk about Oprah?
You want me to talk about the declaw?
Sure.
Yeah, this is a new trait. In fact, we are still, every day when I see it, I always ask rather than getting into a kind of confirmation that I know it, because I still want to be confirmed whether this is the declaw. And declaw is basically the anger towards your parents, and anger basically they say that towards your father. And we have come up with this. In fact, Pradeep from Pune has come up with this trait, and we all are still trying to refer on it again and again. It is coming true, as in every time I ask, it always is true that yes, I have anger. In fact, we got it from one of the signature workshop, and this guy was having this declaw, and he immediately said, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm very angry for my father, and I'm very upset with my parents. So this is the declaw. Actually, what we see is Y claw, or felon's claw, as they say, and it's teenage Y. The same thing is coming up in the middle zone. So the trait says that you have anger towards your father or the parents, and one of the parents. And I don't know how it relates to Oprah. I really don't know about her life.
Well, again, celebrities, we don't really know what they're like in their personal life. You have no idea. You can only speculate there. But essentially, the Y or the D that has this backwards slant, backwards shape, shows up in the Y like that, but the same stroke is in the D right here. So remember what Dr. Walker said, a stroke is a stroke wherever you find it. So if this stroke is in the middle zone, it is different than in the lower zone, but similar in some way. It's going into the past, it's analyzing, and it's coming back in the future. So I kind of call that a revenge stroke. And it seems that people with these type of whys are revengeful. Again, anger in the past. If you spend anger in the past, you might plot a plan to fix that anger. And so these are sort of on the edge of the basic course, probably kind of a little more of the advanced course. Pradeep teaches that in their Indian graphology, but I think it's a really good stroke. And for me, it's added like one more primary trait to the mix. So those of you in the home study course, you just got a bonus that's not in the videos. So thank you, Pooja, for that.
Yeah.
Just to mention, Oprah was abused when she was a child.
Oh, so that would give the root cause of that sort of anger.
Actually, look at I know this is not a class for the pronoun I, but that pronoun I twice shows a lot of issues, both sides, father and mother.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another why I in the it.
And here she says, screw them. I don't need my parents. I'll just make a printed I.
Yeah. There is another one. In it was the second paragraph.
Yeah. And again, I don't know her personally, and I haven't read her books, but I'll tell you, a lot of women in America have followed her for years, and she's incredibly authentic. So I'm sure she's talked about it. I can't imagine that it's much of a secret, but very good observation. So there's a good example, Joanne, of your eyes being weird. But again, mother, father, depends on whether she wrote it first or second, for sure. Doc, you haven't said anything. For people that don't know this, Doc Grayson is on your videos. He did 2 hours on intelligence in handwriting, which is great. And thank you for interviewing me, Doc, about being intelligent. I thought that was a real honor. Nice of you.
We want to show both ends of the spectrum.
Oh, we love you for that.
Doc, you're teaching the 501 class. A lot of people here don't know about that. Just give a 2-minute overview of why you came up with this 501 and why you want to do live classes.
Well, the 501, of course, is the master's course, and it really gives you great confidence in doing handwriting analysis because it goes into areas that we don't cover in the 301. And the 501 is a huge document. There's 2 big books you have to go through. It's a lot of work, but it's interesting work. It's all different. We get into health, we get into graphotherapy, we get into unusual strokes that you won't see but a few times. We go into more advanced stacking of strokes. There's a lot of information there that fine-tunes your knowledge of handwriting analysis. And it's hard to do that alone. It's very difficult to do the 301 alone. Multiply that by 10, and you have the 501. But once you have somebody to work along and you have a meeting each month and you have the prep for that meeting, it gets you slowly through the book and through the manual and through the topics. And we cover each month, we cover 1 or 2 chapters. So that's when they ask the questions about it. And we have about 8, 9 people on the course, and they're really coming along. And they'll all pretty much graduate in August. They'll all be certified master handwriting analysts.
Yeah, and they're also like a master's program. My friend Yakov Smirnov, the comedian, just got his PhD in psychology from Pepperdine. And part of that is you have to write a dissertation to be a doctor. You have to write a theory, and his theory is on relationships and all that kind of stuff. And he's a comedian. But in the master's program, we're asking you to write a paper about something you're observing, some kind of pattern, some kind of trend, so that when you graduate, it's not that you just answered a bunch of questions, but you created some sort of version. My books are basically packed, basically papers. It's like, hey, I see a pattern of wealthy and happy people. Here's what I see in the handwriting, and this is the book. So you could do the same thing, but just make it an article. If all of you guys would write articles, then we will post those articles online, and then you'll get website traffic, and it's really cool. But you have to have a perspective, and you have to have actual samples to support your thesis. So if you're like, hey, all guys are jerks, here's my thesis, here's 20 handwriting samples of jerks, that's a great article because you're like, here it is, here's a stinger, here's dominant, right? But if someone else says all men are amazing and wonderful and nurturing, prove it by pulling up samples of handwriting. So that's what we're asking for both in the master's class as well. If you write articles, some of our best articles are not written by Handwriting University students, which makes me very sad. So we're giving all this traffic, like hundreds of pages a day of traffic, to someone who's not even a member because he said, hey, I want to write an article 10 years ago. And they wrote great articles. So if you guys have any desire to get clients to write articles, please contact us and let us know, because we would love to have you write articles instead of strangers. Pooja?
Yeah, in fact, that was the news that I wanted to share the last month. And this is the news that we are coming up with a magazine for Handwriting University. And all the mentors and the people who are having 301 curriculum in their hand, they are more than welcome to bring up their articles, just post in your samples or articles, any frame. And we are going to publish an online magazine from Handwriting University, and it will be there in everyone's desktop. You can always take a printout and use it for your seminars, or you can send it across to your students with your name in it and your picture in it, and you'll be having an article. Slowly, once you'll collect maybe 10, 20 articles of your own, you can just write your own book. It will be an ebook for you. So this is the kind of support we have started, and all the mentors and the students. And you can always add in two things. Like Joanne here, I think you are into RTT also, right? You can always bring two things together and see how handwriting works. I do body language too, and I add a lot of body language through handwriting. Bring two things, whatever you're doing, bring it together in with handwriting and just post it an article, and you'll be there in the picture. The picture will be there in our magazine.
Yeah, I say this is also, if you want to contribute to the community, is Handwriting University is not even ranked on the first page right now if you do handwriting analysis. And that's because in the last 5 years, I haven't spent a lot of time on search engine. What would help is if we had fresh articles written by you. That would help tremendously. You put the keywords handwriting analysis, we link back to your website or whatever it is. All of you are invited to do that. And I've begged you guys for years, not you guys, but I've begged for years. And for some reason, writing seems really challenging and people get stuck. But I don't know why I need to spend $100 paying someone off Fiverr to write a handwriting article when all of you are doing it every day anyway. Take analysis, break down a celebrity, break down an Indian celebrity, a Singapore celebrity, and let's post it on the website and bounce back to your page, because people will that. You know the number one page, and no one will know this. I will literally give you $5 if you know this. You know the number one organic page for Handwriting University? Somebody guess. Meaning that all the free traffic, the number one of all the topics. We have 5 or 7, almost 800 blog posts in the last 15, 20 years, right?
That's right to Right Shine, Vishwa something, right?
Nope, that's not it. Although he has a lot of stuff. And because of all the links from us, his website is now ranked on the first page of Google. By the way, he's not part of our community, so I don't want to give him free traffic, but we don't take down the pages because we get a lot of traffic. No, it's the suicide note of Kurt Cobain, the lead singer of Nirvana. We're talking about 10,000 visits a month because I wrote one article about one dead guy. Today, we've talked about 6 dead guys. Kennedy, Monroe, Oprah. Wait, Oprah's not dead.
Not yet. Not yet.
That's why genealogy is amazing. You study about dead people.
So my point is, if any of you write an article about anything we just said, post on the website, gets traffic. If anybody's searching for Kennedy or Oprah or whatever, Bill Clinton or Donald Trump, all that stuff creates free traffic, and then people are more interested. And again, if it's on our website, we'll link to your website. So again, an offer for all of you guys. I would have restricted to my mentors, but they won't do it. So please, everybody, come do it. Anyway.
Candidates.
Yes.
Repeat that, Joanne.
Nice.
No, we could write an article on all the presidential candidates. That would be interesting.
Yes, and there's a lot of precedent for that. And so go back and look at that. And next year will be a big year for that because everybody, and I can tell you almost every 4 years, my media appearances, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, they all go up. Even though USA Today had me and the other handwriting experts talking about like 12 or 15 candidates in the early version 2016. So very, very good. We kept talking about the stroke, and this is not a primary stroke. So I want to, again, encourage you guys that you guys are running into the advanced level here. When we start doing this. There we go. Sorry, every time I jump on there, this guy's trying to steal my screen. Screen stealer, I think is what Pooja called me.
Yeah.
So this G is that sort of really deep issues, kind of the felon's claw G. And you see that, I call that revenge stroke. But if you look at this resentment here, you look at the issues with daddy or mommy, you look at the stingers, You look at the manipulation of the O. This person's fucked up. So I don't know how to say that diplomatically, but this guy's a mess. And so, you know, you see this stroke now in isolation, maybe that's not always bad, but you look at these other strokes like, man, there's something wrong with this guy. I mean, look at this. This is an anger at religion. So an anger tick in the upper zone at religion. He's still mad at God. And then he's mad at all women, of course, because of these things. So you got a lot of anger strokes. And in addition to that, you look at the sort of the slow, kind of inconsistent lack of rhythm. That's a lack of emotional intelligence. So it's a lack of formal education. So you have somebody with low intelligence and a lot of anger. And if you have low intelligence, a lot of anger, you're pretty much asking for trouble. I can't think that's going to be a good result by any means.
And that's a suicide note.
Is that a suicide note?
Yes.
Well, I take it back. I feel very guilty now calling him fucked up. I feel very bad.
Oh, maybe that's the reason he committed suicide.
Yeah. And so this is in the home study course, right? It's been so long, I didn't even recognize it.
No, it was not in there.
Oh, we'll see. How did you get a Texas suicide note? I don't understand this, Pooja.
There's something called as Google that Indians use a lot, you know. And that was the first thing when I met you. I told you there are a lot of people who use Google and they call them handwriting analysts. And I think that you posted an article on that. A lot of people do the Googling and they feel that
I've seen this note before. This is definitely something I've seen before. So I don't know. Are you being funny about Google, or you're saying that people are claiming to be experts without taking a course? Is that your punchline?
Yes, absolutely. People call themselves handwriting analysts just by Googling a few handwriting analysis videos. And they are very ready to write in their business cards that they are handwriting analyst or graphologist. In fact, me, when I get a lot of calls from the university, they see the articles and they get into it. And I already am a graphologist. And I keep on asking them, okay, from where did you do the course? No, nothing really. I've read a few books and I quite know a lot of things. So this is what they come up with. So Google is something available for India, and they're already NLP experts and graphologists through Google.
Well, this is obviously you're preaching to the choir here, because we've all invested money to learn. And my dad paid Dr. Walker 2,000 years ago. Useful. So yeah, there are a lot of experts. I think our biggest enemy is not skeptics. I think it's bad graphologists, honestly. And as the community with Handwriting University, it's not skeptics. It's not, these guys that say graphology is bullshit. It's the bad graphologists saying they're graphologist, making everybody devalue it, sitting at a state fair and charging $2 and giving them bad analysis. I think that is our biggest enemy, because when you say you're a handwriting expert or graphologist, I usually get, wow, that's really fascinating. Like, that's what I get. But I know some of you, especially in countries like India, where there's other options for training or no training at all, or people just think that they can get it from Google. It's bad. I mean, I have the same experience. I pay someone to teach me guitar every week. He's a professional musician. And he's like, Bart, stop Googling chords. Let me tell you what a G chord is. Like, do that, because I will Google, and there'll be 7 different interpretations of how to play a G minor, right? Or a D minor. And it's very confusing. And I can afford to pay a teacher, right? I can afford to hire a musician. Not terribly expensive. But the point is, every time I go online, I get confused. And I'm just trying to play guitar. And if you Google the handwriting stuff, it is nothing but mixed messages. And so be mindful. And I'm not saying don't do that, but because there is a lot of interesting value. But go back to your teachers and go back to the textbooks. Because if anything, we did anything well, we took out all the crap. We took out the stuff that's speculative. We took out the stuff that's not correct. And what you find in that course is the stuff that people in all these different countries around the world have found really, really consistent. So yeah, I think that's who our enemy is.
No wonder this sample could have been in handout, and maybe someone would have put in Google saying that it's a suicide note. You never know, they just put anything and everything on Google, picking up from anything and everywhere. And they come to a point that this is something.
Yeah, I don't know where it's from. And maybe I haven't seen the course. So good. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you. Sayali, do you have any comments? You have been awfully quiet for one of our newest mentors. How are you?
I'm good, Bart. How are you?
What did you share? Did you do any interesting analysis this week that you want to share?
Yeah, I did so actually there's this really interesting incident that happened. So one of my school friend, he asked me, he was curious about handwriting analysis. And so he's like, I'll send you my handwriting sample. So we met and I did the analysis, and turns out it was his best friend's sample. And he's like, I was just testing you. I just wanted to know how good you were. And he's like, you have never met this guy and you were bang on. So I think that was really cool. So I think I managed to turn someone who was a skeptic, kind of a skeptic, into someone who's now gone into, being very curious about handwriting. And interesting thing about the sample was that it was full of stingers. And as soon as I see stingers, I remember your article because I have it on my phone. I absolutely found that article to be really helpful. So I think, yeah, that was the highlight.
Thank you. She's talking about this article, which is new, and I'll just share the screen so you can see it. So if you go to Google, which of course Pooja hates because she thinks that that's her enemy right now. Sorry, the wrong screen here. Here it is. So you go to Google and you type in, "I love you like a slot machine." That's the name of the article. And then thank you for the laugh, or whoever said that. I'm full of dopamine and very happy now that you're laughing. So it's the metaphor as a slot machine, which talks about the stinger, and I think it's a better and more accurate definition of the stinger than what Dr. Walker said is an anger at the opposite sex. So for years, it's like it's an anger at the opposite gender. But I think it's deeper than that. And I'll tell you is I got it because I was analyzing a girl whose mothers were gay. And it wasn't man and woman. It wasn't father, mother. It was masculine energy and feminine energy. And I realized it's 2019. We can't use models that don't include mixed sex, mixed genders, mixed identity. That's got to make sense. So this is kind of an updated version of how I handle the stinger. I just so want that T-shirt that says stinger, by the way. I think that's fantastic. I'd so wear that every day.
I think you should make it a Handwriting University official merch.
We should totally make stinger. I've got stingers, bitch. I think that would be the T-shirt for all the.
That's because I need a real man.
Yeah, I need a real man. I got stingers. So yeah, this is a great article, and you have it on your phone. So because it does, and it has phrases and words that would make it more appropriate. Because people will say, "I don't hate my dad. I don't hate men," and they're correct. They don't. They don't hate gambling either, but they keep going back to gambling. They love gambling sometimes when they're winning. They hate it when they're losing. I love men when they're validating me. I hate them when they don't show up. So that's more of the in and outs of the stinger issue rather than resentment. Now, I joked earlier the guy had stingers everywhere. He's fucked up. Yeah, he had a lot of damage, and he's never reconciled it. Does it make sense? But it's a pretty interesting. By the way, Mr. Maxwell, you've got to stop hitting the share button. Share does not mean talk. Share means share your screen. So you need to hit the one on the right that says chat, and then you can type in your answer. So thank you for doing that. That will help us all with that. So that was anyway, thanks for that, Sayali. I think that'll be awesome. That is a good article. And again, this is just all new stuff. So if you guys have been around 10 years ago, this stuff may be not fresh for you because you don't know that it exists. So, okay, we're wrapping at the top of the hour. Any other final questions or comments? I will open the floor up. I will check this chat machine here now. There you go. Perfect, everybody. Ruth Gardner. I haven't read Ruth Gardner in years, Phyllis. So I don't know.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, again, all those books, probably 20 years old, they've got mostly correct stuff, and you're going to get 5 or 6 traits that are just not correct. I don't know which 5 those are. And so that's great, though. If you want to look at that and bring that to class, that would be awesome. You can come back next month and go, hey, this trait, it seems to conflict with that. What do you think? That's a great question, and this is the kind of class you do that in.
Well, I was just wondering if she, if she studied through Bunker or anything, because some of it's correct, but a lot is way too much information for one actual stroke. It's like, oh,
right. Yeah, there's 17 pages of metaphors. So the answer is I don't remember her. I vaguely have a recollection of recognizing her name, but if she's part of like, those more Gestalt organizations, you're going to get some really, again, people write books and they're like obligated to write 17 pages on a stroke when actually you could probably say it in 2, but they got to fill it up. I was offered to do the handwriting analysis for dummies book back 20 years ago, and they wanted to pay me 0 royalties and like $8,000. I'm like, I can make that in a week. Why would I do that? That's ridiculous, right? But to do that, you got to have a really thick book. So they don't care about accuracy as much as like we want to create as much, it's a 500-page book on handwriting. Like I always had a book that said 666 handwriting traits. Well, 500 of those were not correct. Like literally 500 were just made up shit. So how does a beginner know which ones are correct with all the misinformation? And then guess what? If you could play guitar for a year and every time you play it, you play no music, you will give up. You'll be miserable. Your ears will hurt. And same thing, if you analyze handwriting and you're always wrong, or people are saying, nope, it's not me, I don't know where you got that, you'll give up and you'll tell people it doesn't work. And so I think that's our biggest challenge is bad graphology and then people not really appreciating it. Luckily on television, they usually get it right. Like on Criminal Minds, when they do the analysis, they're usually like spot on. But again, I get most people that are just really curious, but people like Pooja, you get a lot of people who are like, yeah, I got on the internet, it's confusing. So Phyllis, use the book, but go there with a highlighter and be like, no, that's not right. And the reason our course is curated by me is if something is not right, I remove it from the course or I downplay it, or I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And of course I did that years ago. We went through and we teach a lot of what Bunker taught, but we don't teach everything he taught because I didn't find it useful in 2012, even though he found it useful in 1959. So great question, Phyllis. And I'm sorry I don't have a more specific answer for you, but the answer is I want you to be able to sort out your own stuff and cross it out and question mark and decide if it works for you.
I kind of do that. I mean,
so bring it to class. Bring the specific question to class and say, is this make any sense? Make sense? Like there's a trait that one of my friends, Parag, he's a great guy. He's like, oh, I'm pretty sure about this trait. It means money falls through their fingers. I'm like, that's not a trait. That's a metaphor. I'm serious, and I gave him shit about this, so I'm not breaking any confidence. I'm like, that's a metaphor. Like that's an end result of a number of bad personality traits. I want the primary trait, not the metaphor. What is the personality behind letting money? Is it lack of discipline? Is it lack of observation? Not attention to detail? Like that's the primary stroke, and you're giving me the metaphor. So any of those books, Phyllis, that have a metaphor as the trait, I usually think, oh, that's not good. Because we should have a primary trait, lack of attention to detail or absent-mindedness. And that trait might lead to the metaphor of I'm clumsy or I fall down or I let money through my fingers. Nita, you're smiling. Have you heard that trait before too?
Yeah.
Is it true or is it not true?
No, it's like, of course, we need some primary traits, right?
But they'll do that, and they're like, "Oh, this is the trait. This is the," then you sound like a psychic or a tarot card reader, and that's not our mission. Love all of you that do tarot cards, but that's not our archetype we're going for. We're going a little bit more for the Tony Robbins, a little less for the woman at the fair. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a shortcut to stacking. Like people are just lazy to stack, so they just name it after a metaphor.
Well, it is. And somebody heard it and someone agreed to it, and therefore they thought it's true. But again, your metaphors will be wrong. I got to tell you, the metaphor dealing with a 17-year-old girl and a 47-year-old girl in the context of relationship, you better have a different metaphor or you'll offend them. Does that make sense? Yeah. You have to contextualize it based on not just their culture, but also their age and their gender. So those are metaphor. I would never change the primary trait because your age or gender, but I would change the metaphor. I'm not going to make a sexual reference to a 14-year-old that we might with a 47-year-old divorced man. Like there's a different context and maturity that would make that acceptable and also more realistic. Trust issues, divorce, like that's a conversation you'd have with a 47-year-old divorced man, but not with a 14-year-old girl. Does that make sense? So that's all metaphorical, but the primary strokes are the same. And so that's when I disagree. Like Nita, you said, like I don't want to hear a metaphor as a trait name. I get it that it's a metaphor, and if you do great metaphors, people will think you're amazing. But they should be based on a trait, not on something you read or heard twice on the internet. technically we're on the internet, but we're on Zoom. So I think we're bypassing the internet.
I want to add on something. Please bring on your samples on silver class. We would love to have all of you in the silver class, because a lot of people who are not a community member or into handwriting analysis, they come in and they would like to get their analysis with that silver class platform. And it'll be amazing for you to come in and stack traits there. This is definitely the coaching class that Bart is giving, and we will be soon getting into a lecture. But Silver Class is an amazing platform to bring in samples and discuss how the trait stacking is done. And graduates or non-graduates or mentors, it's an amazing platform. I have learned from that, and I've seen a lot of people learning from Silver Class. So if no one knows about it, I'm posting the link there. Yeah, I know. I can see Joanne completely confused. Yeah.
Prism, I've done some research on Prism, but silver, I have no idea what that
Yes.
is.
Yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
let me take just a second to explain that.
Yes.
So for over 100 classes, meaning 100 weeks in a row for the last 10 years, we've met on audio and now Zoom to analyze writing. And literally we have hundreds of members, but only like 10 to 12 show up, and we record them. So you look at class 45, class 82, and we analyze writing like we did today, but the writing is generated from you, Joanne. You'll say, this is my dad, this is someone I know. So you bring the story home, because you're like, wow, that's great. And here's what he said about his ex-wife, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, it's $7 a month. I just sent you guys a link, and then the next, and we literally have them every week. I teach most of them myself, but I'm totally open to having other people. And so the next one's like April 29th. You upload. What you do is you go there. And by the way, this page is, let's put that in the thing. And then you upload the sample. That didn't go through. I'm sorry. I may have to double check that link. Oh, here it is, April 29th. And so no one's uploaded any samples, but if they had uploaded, they would all be right there. And so you basically would have March. It's a really good class. Now, I don't know, again, it's not very good for Indian time. And for you, Joanne, it's going to be really bad because it's 6 p.m. Pacific, which is like 2 in the morning. But I'm open to having other time periods if other people would help me host it. So you just upload samples like this, and then we talk about them. And so feel free to go here and look at some of the replays. We don't have 100 replays up, but all that is there. But yeah, if you want a different time zone and those in India and Germany, let us know and maybe we can work something out. I don't necessarily want to get up at 2, but I would do it in the afternoon for you, Joanne, to have that. I think we have enough people that would probably warrant that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. It's been about an hour and a half, even more. So thank you so much. Again, we're doing classes, 4 or 5 times a month. So if this is your only class, talk to your mentor, talk to one of Pooja or Doc or somebody and see if there's something else that would be conducive to help you get your goals. If again, if handwriting is your only interest, then there's a lot of handwriting courses. If life design or coaching or forensics is your interest, there's other options in that. Later this month, we'll open up the Prison Life Design program, which is the level 1 level. And then later this year, we'll do the certification level. So that's for those that are interested in coaching and becoming a life design coach. We'll be having that program. We've done 2 good years of that. Now we have an introductory program, and we'll be needing teachers of that program. So a lot of ways that you guys can all get involved in both handwriting analysis, NLP, and basically changing lives. I mean, that's the big picture. We're here to change lives, transform lives, gives people some understanding. And from that, hopefully you guys can make a shift and make a living and help people on a more full-time basis than just part-time. Pooja, you have any final words for the group? And thank you so much for staying an hour and a half, especially those of you in other countries where it's 2 in the morning. I appreciate it.
Just to bring on the samples and bring on the articles, I'm really looking forward for an amazing first issue of our magazine. And the articles will be posted on the site also, and you can get the magazine. Bring it on. You have my contact numbers, and looking forward to see you in the next class too. I'll be sending you mailers of about what topic we are going to discuss for the next class, and please keep your questions ready.
And I really want to add that it's a really great community, but you all had made it. So I think so last time, Michael, right? He messaged, and then he was in Singapore, and I had a meeting with him. And yeah, he was amazing. Like he's, I think so, translating some of so he's trying to understand the concept, and he's translating it in Germany. I think so because he belongs from Austria. So yeah, so it's a great community, and it's good that, so we all are helping, and then, like how we can explore and do more. by the handwriting analysis.
Yeah, it feels nice knowing you're not the only one in the world with this hobby. And it's great. I want you guys to connect. Again, the mentors connect, but we know each other. But all of you guys, this is really easy. On these chat rooms, if you want to talk to somebody, you just there's Mignon. I can click to her and just type her a little private message. So all of you guys are welcome to interact with each other. If you see somebody you like, you're going to Singapore, let us know. We're not trying to keep you guys apart. We're sure not worried about competition. We want you guys to all write and be stars and help spread this. Absolutely. So again, thank you, everybody. If I didn't get to say hi to you directly, I appreciate you. I see you, and we'll talk to you in 1 month, if not before.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good month ahead. Bye.
Bye.